Sorry, it's a word I've never heard before. Well, look this way. We learned a new word today. Okay, so we'll see if it's an actual word. Only one way to find out. Like whether we sang at the beginning of service. Although all sing is really means quiet, so it's got to be something that quiet or soft. This day means a great praise, but it is the word. It says the characteristic rising and whistling of the voice when speaking, a pleasant, gentle accent. Well, it would be like that. So pleasant. So I think it's a characteristic rising of the voice when speaking. It's my favorite. That's what it says. We'll have to make sure we're singing nice and gentle, soft. It's very pleasant. What is she? We do a lot of switching. So we switch. I still have two. I still have two. I was a musician, not a
Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. I'm Regina Stanley, and I have the pleasure of serving as the membership coordinator with this congregation. This is a beloved community striving to live its mission of embracing freedom, loving wholeheartedly, growing in mind, body, and spirit, and adding to the healing of the world. We welcome people of all ethnicities and races, sexual orientation and gender identities, social and economic situations, abilities, and politics. We advocate for human rights, and we strive to be good stewards of our earth. In living our mission, we recognize the network of relationships of which we are a part. This is the ancestral home of the Peoria people. They and other nations were here long before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. We honor the Peoria people for who they were and for who they are today. Thank you for joining us in person and online. One of the lessons from the past few years is how precious it is to come together, to be with other people, to expand our circles of care and kindness. If you are new, please help us get to know you. We have plenty of name tags, and we welcome all the questions. Stay for coffee and conversation in Fellowship Hall or in the Zoom room after service. Please be sure to turn your devices to worship mode, either silent or vibrate. See the graphic on the slides for help or ask a neighbor in the sanctuary. I welcome our pulpit guest, the Reverend Rebecca Gant, to our service today. Reverend Rebecca Gant is the minister at the Bloomington Normal, Illinois UU Church. She grew up in South Central Kansas and spent her years after high school in Lawrence, Kansas. There she married Joe in 1991 and raised two fabulous, kind, smart daughters. She began her journey to become a UU minister in 2017, after feeling the pull for more than a decade. In her free time, she enjoys laughing, hiking in the woods, making things from yarn or paper, traveling, and hosting impromptu patio parties. This is her first visit to our congregation. Thank you for being with us. I have a few notes for today. This afternoon, members and families are welcome to join us for the St. Patrick's Day Parade at 2. Please see me if you'd like to participate. We'll line up at 1:30 downtown, and it should be a lot of fun. It's a little cold and windy, just bundle up. We'll have a good time. Later this afternoon is the youth gathering with other affirming faith congregations who are LGBTQ+ affirming. Families with youth in grades 6 and up are invited for games and sandwiches as part of March Madness at Imago Dei Church at 5 o'clock. Please bring sides and desserts to share. The other fun thing coming up, I hope you'll join us for the first ever Drag and Paint on this Friday night, March 22nd. This is a drag show and a paint night combined. It's going to be so much fun. Doors open at 6:30. Show starts at 7. It's $40 a person. Drag and Paint brings an evening full of wild, high-energy, show-stopping drag performances with a unique paint night twist that is a blast for everyone. Miss Flo No Mo and friends will keep you entertained while artist Meg Corey guides you through creating a masterpiece. No experience necessary, all supplies and take-home canvas included. Buy your ticket now so we have a sense of the count. See you Friday. Now we have an invitation from Kathy Lothrop, a member of the annual campaign.
Good morning. Next Sunday, March the 24th, is our annual campaign kickoff with a Mediterranean lunch. Please plan to attend this intergenerational event. The main dish, salad, and beverages will be provided. Please bring a dessert to share if you would like. We love our church because ours is a church that says yes. Yes to justice in our world. Yes to becoming. Yes to supporting one another. And yes to personal growth. During the luncheon, we will talk about the year ahead, and you'll be given the pledge packets. Our pledges make up almost 80% of the support that provides the yes. Please let us know how many will attend from your household by signing up at the table in the foyer or contacting this office. I will have the clipboard in the foyer, and please sign up. We'd love to have you. See you there.
Now, if you'll rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, 1000 Morning Has Come by Jason Shelton.
I call us into this moment of worship with the words of my very talented colleague, the Reverend Gretchen Haley. If you had the chance to start again, to make your life from scratch, to decide what kind of person you would be, what songs you would sing to yourself and with others, what prayers you would let fall from your lips urgently and with praise, with mercy or hope, what blessings would you name and share with strangers and friends? If you could take now that first step, what journey would you begin? Across deserts or mountains? Or would you take to the sky, which, despite the bitter cold, is still vast and filled with light? What work would you take? What mischief would you make with boldness and with bravery? What failure would you embrace? And what would you release? And where, in the end, would you turn to call home? In this new day, no magic wishing is required, for such a chance is always available, as with the in and the out of our breath. To begin now to live like we mean it, to see with new eyes the life that is already and always available, to respond to this gift with wonder and with gratitude, to join in this partnership to tend the flame even when it breaks our heart, to keep showing up and go with courage into this dawning day. Come and let us worship together.
Now I would like to invite the Keister family up for the chalice lighting.
We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open minds. This is the church of the helping hands. This is the church of the loving hearts. Together we care for our earth and work for peace in our world.
moon rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rain fall softly on your face. And until we meet again, may God hold you, may God hold you, ever in the palm of His hand. May the moon rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rain fall softly upon your face. And until we meet again, may God hold you, may God hold you, ever in the palm of His hand. Ever in the palm of His hand.
I invite you to join me in a deep breath. In a moment, we'll have some music for meditation time. And as the music begins, you're invited to come forward and light a candle. The candle could mark any joy or sorrow that you're carrying with you in your heart today. If you prefer to remain in your seat, please do. And you can allow the music to wash over you as we have a moment of centering. Let us witness these joys and sorrows that have been shared. Here's a joy from Gary Hall that Gary helped swear in new citizens Thursday at the Peoria Library, 84 in total. We wish Michaela Thomas well as she moves into her first apartment. We send healing wishes to Jill Thomas as she recovers from surgery. She expects to be at OSF through the weekend, and calls and visits are welcome. We extend healing wishes also to BJ Lindsay. Her spouse, Terrence, brought her to the hospital last weekend, and BJ is back home and taking care of herself with Terrence's support. And now, will you please join me in some silence as we remember and witness all of the joys and sorrows, names and milestones that we carry with us. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Our story today comes from an author named Pat Hutchins, who also illustrated this book. It's called Changes, Changes. So here we have two people and lots of blocks. So we're going to see what they do with these blocks as things happen in their life. My clicker may or may not be, there we go. Okay, so they decided it looks like they're building something with an arch door. What else? Building more. Oh, they made a house. Uh-oh, what happened? Is there any problem? It's on fire. Oh no, what will they do? It looks like they might be made of wood also, so they're going to have to do something. Oh no. Wait, are they building something else? They built a fire truck and put out the fire. Good news. Uh-oh. Too much water, maybe. Now what will they do? Okay, no problem. Just build a boat. So they're on their boat, they're sailing, heading somewhere, and they finally arrive on land. But now what? Okay, maybe they'll build something different. Their boat won't work on the land. Perfect. A truck. Oh no, I think it has a flat tire. Oh, no problem. Build a train. But they ran out of track. No worries, they have a new home. So the people in our story faced a lot of trouble, but they didn't get stuck, did they? When they started out with a boat, no, they started with a house. When the house caught on fire, they built a fire truck. When the fire truck made too much water, they built a boat, and on like that. They were, what word would you use to describe them? Flexible, what else? resilient, hardworking, optimistic, helping each other, yeah, persistent. They didn't stick in one way of being, right? Like, oh, we are now engineers on a train. Oh, hang on, now we are on a boat. Now we are. They were able to change with what they needed to change, how they needed to change. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to today's story. Uh-oh.
Okay, and now at this time, we will sing the children out, and the children are welcome to go back to RE. From Michael Hall. As we approach the time for our offering, give what you will. For the church that has meant so much to you, for the church that meant so much to those who came before you, and for the church that will mean so much to people you will never know. Give what you will, for you are a generous people. We also send part of what we receive out into the world when we share the plate. For this month's Share the Plate recipient, we are collecting for the East Bluff Community Center Food Pantry. They operate on most Saturday mornings. Residents of this low-income area and unhoused individuals may access the pantry twice a month. Breakfast is served to guests while they await their turn in the pantry. This 501c3 charity is staffed by volunteers and receives no government funding. For Share the Plate, 2/3 of the undesignated collection goes to the church, 1/3 to the named agency. Please use the envelopes to make your offering and indicate its use. See the QR code in the order of service to make an online donation. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite the ushers forward to collect the offering.
So
I'd like to invite Tony Huerta up for our first reading.
Good morning. First reading is from If God is Love, Don't Be a Jerk by John Pavlovitz. You were born without a box for God. You probably know this, even if you've forgotten it. You experienced beauty and wonder without needing church or a Bible verse or a pastor to explain it to you. And you don't need that now. I'm not necessarily telling you to abandon your faith traditions or that it's unhealthy for you. But I am telling you that your faith tradition, whatever it is ultimately incomplete, and that it alone cannot house whatever it is that holds us all together. To admit this isn't theological mutiny. It's finding the necessary humanity to embrace something bigger than even your preferred box. Your own evolution testifies to the inevitability of outgrowing your former self. You probably no longer believe what you believed 20, 10, or even 5 years ago. I sure hope not. You've likely come to a fundamentally different understanding of things like climate change, or immigration, or same-sex marriage, or the death penalty. And it's happened as you've developed new relationships, accrued more life experience, and been informed by exposure to new ideas. Hopefully, you've undergone some kind of perspective transformation, because if not, that likely means you haven't learned anything new in that time. Spirituality should be continually unfolding. New information will always alter our worldview, always challenge our assumptions, always move us away from a former deeply entrenched position, and it will surprise us by coming without the old packaging. I now invite Jen Stubbs up for our next reading.
The Growing Edge by Howard Thurman. Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. The fruit ripens on the tree. The roots are silently at work in the darkness of the earth against a time when there shall be new leaves, fresh blossoms, green fruit. Such is the growing edge. It is the extra breath from the exhausted lung, the one more thing to try when all else has failed, the upward reach of life when weariness closes in upon all endeavor. This is the basis of hope in moments of despair, the incentive to carry on when times are out of joint and men have lost their reason, the source of confidence when the worlds crash and dreams whiten into ash. The birth of a child, life's most dramatic answer to death. This is the growing edge incarnate. Look well to the growing edge.
So we're going to begin, before I preach my sermon, we're going to sing together. And it's a song that I'll teach and lead, and I invite you, if you can hear the harmony, you sing the harmony. If you want to just beat the time on your chest or on your leg, you do that. There are two parts to this, so if you put up the slide. This is a song by Leah Morris, who is an artist associated with Unitarian Universalism. I'm not sure exactly her connection. but she makes a lot of great music. So there are two parts. The first line is part 1, and it's just keep your heart open. The words are easy. So I'll sing it, and you join me. I'll just sing it on repeat, and you join me when you're ready, okay? Keep your heart open, 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 keep your heart open. Sounds like you've got it. Okay, here's the second part. I'll sing a line and you sing it back. Okay, so when I point this way, that's me, and when I point that way, it's you. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Your turn. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Though the waves try to push you around. Your turn. Though the waves try to push you around. Third line sounds a lot like the first. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Let's hear it. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Let's hear it. Till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Pretty easy? Think you can do it? Let's sing part 2. 1, 2, go. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves try to push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Keep your heart open, 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 keep. If you like that part, just keep singing it. Open, keep your heart open, keep your. Who's ready to go with me on the other part? Ready? Keep your heart open. Part 2, here we go. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves try to push you around. Keep your heart open, keep your heart. You gotta keep your heart, keep your heart right open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Thank you. You were in it. That's great. We're going to do that again later. I'm so pleased to be here with you today. This sanctuary is so different from the Bloomington one. This one's wide and shallow, and in Bloomington it's narrow and deep. So this is fun to try something new. Glad to be with you. So for those of you who've ever cared for a child or an infant, or held a child or an infant in your arms, imagine that you are holding that baby. The baby has fallen asleep, and you're ready to put them down for a nap. How do you put them down? Do you put them tummy down or on their backs? If you were a parent before the 1990s, you would probably put the child on their tummy. As the parenting experts of the early 20th century, including Dr. Spock, advised. The rationale was that if a child spit up, they would be able to clear it from their mouths and they wouldn't choke. But if you have cared for an infant sometime since the 1990s, you would likely put the baby down on their back. There was a dramatic change in the 90s in advice to caregivers. New research showed that babies sleeping on their backs were much less likely to die of sudden infant death syndrome. This change happened around the time that my eldest daughter was born, and this was stressful for me. I had grown up with younger siblings sleeping on their stomachs. When I babysat, I put the babies face down. So as a new parent, when I was already worried about everything, this was really fraught. All my life, what I had seen and what I had been taught was that the safest thing for a baby was to be put to bed face down. But now here's this new research and new advice and a new campaign to educate parents, and it really challenged what I thought I knew to be true. I had to read a lot more and ask a lot more questions of the pediatrician before I believed what he was telling me. Eventually, I felt comfortable about this new change, but it took some time because change is not easy, y'all, right? However, as Unitarian Universalists, many of us are quite familiar with a dramatic change in our perspectives and our understanding of how the world works. I know this, I can say it with confidence that a large number of us know this because a large percentage of people who are now UUs did not grow up in this faith. Now, there are things to explore in that statement itself and things to grieve, like the fact that our kids don't stick around. They drift away. And there are things to celebrate, like the fact that we have something to offer that people are looking for. But this sermon, however, is less about that and more about this humility and openness to being transformed. Since I've become a Unitarian Universalist, I have heard countless stories of people who've come to this faith as adults because of a change in their perspective. My own story is one of those, and it may be that yours is too. Sometimes this change in perspective happens because of something dramatic. Maybe a drastic change in life circumstances or an event at a previous religious home. Sometimes it's just a slow drifting away from a theology that no longer seems to fit, or a gradual realization that someone who is not part of a religious community needs some support for their spiritual life. So here's a thing that I think is interesting about human development and shifting perspectives, and I'm going to ask you to join me in a thought experiment. So this will be different depending on your age. But I want you to think back on yourself as you were as a teen, if you're no longer a teen, or maybe as a young adult. I'm sure you had opinions, thoughts about who you were, an understanding about the answers to some of the big questions in life, like who or what God is, why you were on this earth, who and what you were supposed to be. And you had priorities and you based them on your values. So think of what are the things that you were sure of as a young adult or a teenager. And I'm just going to be quiet a minute so you can think. So if you go forward then maybe a decade into your maybe early 30s, what were you sure of in your 30s? How about in your 40s, if you're that old? What were you sure of in your 40s? Go through the decades of your life as you're able and try to recall those perspectives on the world, and I'm just going to be quiet again for a second. Now, I invite you to think about how these perspectives changed over time. Are the things that you're sure of now, things that you would go to the mat for, the same as they were for your younger self? Maybe, maybe not, depending on the topic. Can you recall these changes in your beliefs and in the things that you are sure of? Can you recall the events or people that maybe changed your perspective? I hope so. Because as John Pavlovitz writes, if you haven't changed any of your perspectives, that probably means you haven't learned anything in that time. Some examples that come to me from my own life are related to my understandings about race and gender and ability. I have a different understanding now than I did 10 years ago, and that's different from what I understood 20 years ago. When I think back to my earlier self, I feel a little fondness, and I do the equivalent of a little head patting of, oh, bless your heart, honey. You were doing the best you could. You didn't know all there was to know. And sometimes I also feel a little frustrated, like, how could you not understand this? It was so clear. But to complete our thought experiment, I'm now going to ask you to consider how your answers to all these big questions, all these things you're sure of right now, might be different 10 years in the future. That's harder. It's hard to imagine that all of our hard-won and well-reasoned conclusions of today might turn out to be worthy of discarding in the future. It's an interesting feature of our humanity is that we tend to think that whatever conclusions we've come to in this very moment are the pinnacle of our development. Phew, thank goodness we finally figured out how all this works, right? And so this project of learning and self-assessment requires a huge dose of humility. In the congregation I serve, and I suspect also here in this congregation, we're exploring the values associated with the proposed version of Article 2, our UU bylaws. We've been exploring the values of love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. You may know that this preliminary version of our bylaws received approval last June at our General Assembly, and in the coming General Assembly this coming June, we will vote again to affirm those or amend those, or maybe reject those. Now, here's a side note. If you've been learning about these, but you're having trouble remembering them, a colleague shared a mnemonic device. So it's love, jet, pig. So if you can remember, love is the value in the center that holds them all together, and jet, pig spells justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. They've even made t-shirts. But it's funny and it's silly, but it's helpful to me. But now back to the sermon. In these proposed bylaws, how each of the values is named and briefly described, and then the text articulates how we will covenant to live each value in the world. The proposed section of the bylaws related to transformation sounds like this. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. This valuing of transformation goes way back in both our Unitarian and our Universalist heritages. One of the touchstones of the liberal theological tradition that we have inherited and that we share with others is the idea that revelation is not sealed. For theists, this means that God continuously reveals God's truth to humans, and that very little is set in stone. For non-theists, it means that truth is ever unfolding in the world, in our observation. For both theists and non-theists, this again requires that dose of humility and open-heartedness, and remembering that just because you feel like you've figured things out in this moment, it doesn't mean you might not change your mind later. Our understandings grow and change as we grow and change. The little block people in the story earlier are an example of this humility and flexibility. When their house burned and the water they used to put out the fire rose, they did not stay stubbornly attached to the structure of their house. They took what they had, they adapted it for the new circumstance, and made a boat. And when they reached the shore, they didn't stay on the boat and wait for something outside them to change. They reconfigured what they had into a truck and continued on their journey. Our human journeys here together are also affected by metaphorical and literal fires and floods that push us to examine our perspectives, to reconsider what it is that we want to hold on to. And we can return to our faith community when we are seeking support for this examination and healing. But our faith is not just a safe space for support, it's also a catalyst. It's a prod for more transformation. There's an old saw that you may have heard that the minister's job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And there's also that joke about Unitarian Universalists that our congregations are places where your answers will be questioned. Our faith pushes us to embrace transformation, and our faith offers that solid ground to help keep us stable. Transformation for each of us is going to look different, and what moves us to change, whether it's art or a great nonfiction book or a conversation with someone new, that will be different for each of us. But our eventual goal in this faith is to bring more love into the world that is so broken and so worthy of our attention. In our faith, we keep learning more and more about how to bring this love into the world, the love that undergirds those other 6 values. The learning isn't always easy. The changing isn't easy. It's possible for us to assume wrongly that we've arrived at the pinnacle of our development, but last time I looked, this world did not reflect the beloved community that we yearn to bring into being. And so my question for you then is, where is your growing edge that Howard Thurman described? Where's that place that is the border of life and death, where something old can give way to something new? Our work then is to nurture that growing edge, to find it in ourselves, to transform ourselves so that we can transform this world into what we hope it could be. Are you with me? Keep your heart open, keep your heart open, keep your heart open, keep your heart open, keep your heart open. Why don't you stand up? Keep your heart open, keep your heart open, keep your heart open, keep your heart. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves try to push you around. And keep your heart, you gotta keep your heart wide open, till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Do it again with feeling. Come on, let's hear you. Your heart, you gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves try to push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open, till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Say the last line again. Till your faith brings you back to solid ground. One more time. Here it comes, till your faith brings you back to solid ground. Thank you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now may you go from here knowing that you are whole and holy and worthy of love and belonging and transformation. And may you go from here and share that good news with our world that is so beautiful and so worthy of rescue. Amen.